Hi, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Kernu. We are going to be doing a Write to Sources this week. Now, it's been a while since we've seen a Write to Sources. I know we've been working a lot on the skills and the vocabulary, but this week we're going to change it up a little bit and do something that we used to do a lot when we were in normal school. So, this week we've been reading persuasive essays about non-native species, and we're going to take all the stuff that we learned and we're going to take our skill and our strategy, our vocab, our grammar, and we're going to put it all together to do this quick write about the selection. Now, here we have, as you know, from doing these things, that a student, Vince over here, he looks like a smart young man, he answered a question. And we're going to look at his writing sample that's right here. And then we are going to answer the your turn question over here. So we're going to look at this sample, look at what he does well, and then we're going to use that to help us write our own sample. Now, I am going to help you through it a little bit more than I used to because it's been a while, but you'll get the hang of it real quick and we'll be fine. All right, so let's look at Vince's writing. It says, I answered the question, in your opinion, do the benefits of purposefully introducing a non-native species outweigh the risks? I want you to think for a minute. Think about after you've read this selection, you've read both the pros and the cons. I want you to think about it. What do you think would be the benefits of purposefully introducing a non-native species, and how does that outweigh the risks? All right, now that you've thought about it, we're going to look at the student model. And remember, this is an opinion piece. When we write an opinion piece, Mrs. Kernu, Mr. Simpson, Ms. Roseborough, we're not looking for the right answer. What we are looking for is your ability to back up your opinion with facts and evidence. So when you're writing your own answer to the your turn question, we're going to make sure that we give reasons and evidence to back up our opinion. All right, so let's read the student model and then we'll talk about what Vince did really well during his writing piece. He writes, I think the benefits of purposefully introducing non-native species into an environment outweigh the risks. I want to point this out really quickly. I love that he restated the question here and clearly gave his opinion. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, okay? He thinks that introducing species into a non-native species into an environment does outweigh the risks, that it's a good thing. Let's see if he backs it up. For instance, without the introduction of Vidalia beetles in Florida's citrus crops, many citrus farmers could have faced a bad situation. The beetles ate the insects that were killing the citrus plants and did so without any bad side effects or the need for additional pesticides. Now remember, I'm making a connection here. Those pesticides can be really bad. Remember when we learned about the eagles and DDT? They kept the citrus healthy, the environment clean, and the farmers employed. The beetles were the best solution. Without smart planning, purposefully bringing non-native species into certain areas has more advantages than disadvantages. All right, boys and girls, so this is his short writing sample. Notice that it's 2 paragraphs, so I'm not going to ask you to write a 5-paragraph essay here, but I do want you to be able to present your opinion and present your evidence and your reasoning in a conducive manner so that you are fully expressing your thoughts. So let's look at the things that Vince did really well. They point out that he used transitions. Did you guys notice over here? Let's see if I can do this like cool little. Oh, look, now it worked. All right, so I just underlined. For instance is a great transition phrase. It's something that we can use to help us understand that the author is moving along to a new idea or topic. Transitions are important because in this case, it introduces an example that supports his opinion. So he says the benefits outweigh the risks, and here's why. All right, so that's a great way to use this transition phrase. You can also use things like for example. I know that in our writing we've used for example, in addition, furthermore, in conclusion, or in closing. So we're very familiar with these things. So we're going to make sure that in our short writing we use these throughout. All right, the next thing. So all right, so there we go. I'm trying to make a little star. There we go. This is the saddest little star ever. I'm so sorry, guys. All right. The next thing that they say that Vince does well is that he has reasons and evidence. So he didn't just say, yeah, this is a great idea. The end. He backed it up with reasons and evidence, okay? He developed the topic using facts and details from the text that we read. Okay, we have that right here. The beetles ate insects that were killing the citrus plants and did so without any bad side effects, or the need for additional pesticides. They kept the citrus healthy, the environment clean, and the farmers were working. So these are all the good things from the text. Sorry, my cheek itches. These are all the good things from the text that they use to support their answer. Now, you may have also noticed over here that they put a little grammar tip in here. So it says the adjective best is used to compare more than two things, places, or things. So this is called a superlative form of the adjective. So something is good, better, best. Okay. So we use great when we're talking about one thing. We would use better when we're talking about two things, like Mrs. Kernew is a better teacher than Mr. Simpson. And if we were using best, we would be comparing three people, or more. So we could say Mrs. Kernew is the best teacher in 5th grade, obviously. All right, so we're going to use adjectives as we write. And then we are also, if you look down here, going to put a strong conclusion. Now, Miss Shallow always talks about this as a drop the mic moment. So this is your chance to drop the mic, to be like, boop. You're going to restate your opinion nice and strong so that the reader is well aware this is what I mean, okay? So again, we state our opinion in the beginning so that the reader is well aware of what they're going to read. We set a purpose, and then the reader is also going to get a reminder at the end of what they're reading that this is your opinion. All right, so when we go to your turn, which is right here, circle it so you guys don't write for the other prompt, which somehow happens. I don't know how or why. All right, so let's take a look at the your turn question. It says, in your opinion, what has been the most helpful non-native species brought to the United States? And explain your answer. So you are going to follow the same format as Vince's opinion, but you're answering a totally different question, guys. We are thinking about what is the best or most helpful non-native species that has been brought to the United States. So we're going to go back to the text and find evidence to help us support what we think. Okay, guys, so for the rest of our session, we're going to do a quick note-taking brainstorm, and then I'm going to do the introduction sentence with you, and then you're going to go from there. You're going to create the 2 to 3 paragraphs with a strong introduction, restating the question, providing your explanation and your evidence, your reasoning, and then you're going to end it with a strong conclusion. All right, so hopefully you see on the board behind me that we're going to be looking for examples of helpful non-native species. We're going to make a little list, and then we're going to pick one that we are going to write about. Now, my example is going to be different from yours, and that's okay. I just want you to see what my thought process is. All right, guys, so now I'm looking back at the text, And we started with should plants and animals from other places live here? So the first selection says new arrivals welcome. Non-native species are good for the economy and they taste good too. So right away, I'm guessing that this person is very much pro non-native species, that they think it's a good thing for non-native species to be in North America. So I'm going to skim and scan here. And I noticed they mentioned in Florida, 2,000 species of plants and animals are non-native. These include oranges, chickens, and sugarcane. So I'm going to write that down. All right. And then I'm going to scan and scan over here. They help control insects. Talks about, there's those beetles again. Remember we talked about in the example. So I'm not going to use those because we already learned about that. Not all new arrivals, however, non-native. Oh, many of the dogs and cats we love so much originate in other parts of the world. Would you want to ban Labrador retrievers and Siamese cats? Oh, so we could say cats and dogs. So just from skimming and scanning after I've already read this with Miss Roseborough, I can jot down that yes, oranges, chickens, sugarcane, cats, and dogs, very helpful. And I couldn't imagine life without them. So we're going to take these as some examples. Now I'm going to look at the next one. A growing problem. Thousands of foreign plant and animal species threaten our country. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would I look at this? Because this is all the negatives. Well, we can sometimes use negatives to flip the argument. So let's take a look at what they have to say. Pythons, yeah, probably not that beneficial. Let's see if we can find something. Skimming and scanning, beneficial. Carp, it's been able to thrive. Oh, now it's threatening the ecosystem. We don't want that. That's a negative. Germs are invasive species. Yeah, and bird flu. Yeah, no, we don't. That's not going to be beneficial. Some agricultural experts have introduced nonnative on the purpose to improve the environment. Here we go. 100 years ago, these trees were brought to Florida from Australia to stabilize swampy areas. Now millions of trees blanket the land, crowding out native plants. So they were helpful at first, but then they overran the place. We don't want that. All right, so not so much anything here that we can really flip, but let's look at this diagram or chart, over here. So we have non-native species benefits and costs. So here they list the species for us, where they come from, how they were introduced to the United States and when, what the positive impact was, and then the negative impact. So let's take a look at the species that they mentioned. Maybe we can use one of those. So first we have horses. Horses were brought from Europe in the early 1500s, and they were brought here on purpose. So it says they were used for work, transportation, and recreation. So I would say before cars and trains and all that, horses were a pretty big deal. You needed them to get from place to place. But it does say that the negative impact was that it made large-scale wars possible. I don't know if that's something that's really pertinent or applicable for right now. So I'm going to jot horses down because I could probably come up with a good argument that horses are beneficial. All right, next we have a plant, stops soil erosion, but it crowds out native plants. And I don't know if I can write a good argument for that one, so I'm going to skip that. Next up, we have olives. Yum. Olives on my pizza. Gotta love it. All right, so olives were brought from the Middle East and from Europe in the early 1700s, and it says that they're a major food and cooking oil source and important industry for California. So they provide a lot of money, jobs. That's a good thing. Now, it does say that most olives must be imported because they don't grow everywhere. Well, that sounds like the benefits are pretty good. So I'm going to write down olives. And the last one, we have a Mediterranean fruit fly. Can be used as a food source for creatures such as spiders. And the negative is it destroys 400 species of plants. Wow, not looking so good, Mr. Fruit Fly. So we're going to now take the list that we've gathered. We're going to take a look at it and we'll decide which one we're going to write about. All right, good job scanning the text, guys. All right, guys, so let's take a look at our list over here. So these are the helpful non-native species that we pulled from the text. So when we were looking, we looked for things that were beneficial, that maybe had a couple of downsides, but for the most part were beneficial and helpful. So we came up with the species of oranges, chicken, sugarcane, horses, cats, dogs, and olives. So now we're going to write our own response where we're going to use one of these topics and write about it with some reasoning. So when you're picking your topic, make sure that you pick one that you can write the most about. One that's going to be super convincing. Because remember, when we're writing an opinion piece, we want to convince the reader that we're right, because we are. Okay? So I'm going to get you guys started with some tags, and then you're going to be off and running with your own 2 to 3 paragraphs on this topic. All right, guys. So now we have to look at that question and we have to write our own essay. So I'm going to show you my model for how we can come up with this. So first things first, make sure your name and write to sources is your title. And then you're going to make it heading on your page. So I put my first and last name, make sure they're both capitalized because they are proper nouns. Put the date, and I put write to sources, WTS, dash non-native species, because that's what our writing is going to be about today. We're using the write to sources, and we're talking about non-native species. So now let's get to it. Whenever I answer a question about text, I want to start with tags. Tags includes the title, the author, the genre, and a simple summary so that the person reading your answer or your writing knows what you're talking about and where you got your information from. This is a very important part of your writing process for writing to sources. So the first thing we want to do is let's look at Mrs. Kernew's example of tags and see if she did an okay job. So it says, in the persuasive articles, New Arrivals Welcome and A Growing Problem, the authors describe the negatives and benefits of non-invasive species in North America. Well, let's use our tags as a checklist. Did Ms. Kernew include the titles? She did. So let's highlight them now. I'm going to highlight those green. All right. Please notice that the titles are in fact in quotation marks because this is a short writing piece that we are writing about. Both articles are very short. So I'm also making sure that I include the genre. So we have persuasive articles here. So I'm going to highlight that. So we have title, we have genre. Now let's look for that author. Now notice I wrote the authors. Let's go back to the selection here. There was no author listed for either article. So the easiest way to go around that is just put the authors, which is what I did. So we're good there. Let's make them yellow. Ooh. All right, and then so we have our title, we have our author, we have our genre. Now we want to look for a simple summary. Describe the negatives and benefits of non-invasive species in North America. Was that the main idea of both articles? Pretty much. So we'll highlight this. What color should I pick, guys? I'm going for this lovely purple, I think. Okay. So we have an appropriate tag statement. Now, remember, we also want to make sure that we restate the question and answer the question. So below here, I went to a new line and I indented, okay? In my opinion, the most beneficial non-native species in North America is, and this is where you're going to put your answer from our board here. You can't see it now because it's all crazy and wonky and small, but we picked oranges, chickens, sugarcane, horses, cats, dogs, or olives. So you're going to pick one of those. So I might say something like, in my opinion, the most beneficial non-native species in North America is sugarcane. The author wrote, now this is where I'm going to go back to the article and find information about sugarcane, okay? If there is anything there. Now, if I'm having a hard time finding information, maybe I shouldn't pick that one. So there wasn't really a lot about sugarcane, but I could, let's look at my list. I think I'm going to pick, I really do like olives. So let's see. Ooh, the olives on my pizza. Can't get any better. All right. So the most beneficial non-native species in North America, olives. The author wrote, so I'm going to go back to my article here. It's not in this one. I know it's in this chart over here. So olives, it says it's a major food and cooking oil source and an important industry in California. So I'm going to include that in my writing. So I might say something like, the author wrote, it's an important industry in California. This means it's a big part of business in that state. This matters because a lot of people use olives. They are employed by companies that are growing olives, that there's a lot of people that work in the, I guess, like the bottling industry for olives, making little containers and all that. So there's a lot of people that depend on jobs that go along with that. So that would be my first one. I could also go so far as the fact that people just enjoy them on their pizza, or people like to have them as a snack. All right. So I can include multiple reasons why these olives are important. And then lastly, I'm going to go to the closing right here. So this is the time when I restate my opinion and let the reader know, boom, this is what I have to say. So in closing, the most beneficial non-native species in North America is the olive. Without this species, people wouldn't have jobs. People would have sad pizza without the delicious flavor of these delightful olives. All right, so this is where you're really going to bring things home about why this is the most beneficial non-native species. So again, let's look at our format here. We start with the tags. We answer the question and restate the question. We give our evidence. So what does the text say? What does it mean? What does it matter? You can do that once or twice. And then we're going to go to the closing where you restate your opinion and really bring it home to whoever's reading this that, yeah, I'm right. So boys and girls, please keep all of this in mind as you're writing your paragraphs. Now, remember, your reading teacher is expecting to see 3 small paragraphs, not 1 sentence, people. Okay, I know I'm looking at you. So we should see your tags. We should see what does it say? What does it mean? What does it matter? We should see your answer, and we should see a beautiful closing. And don't be too shy to add some adjectives into your writing. Also, please remember those transition phrases at the beginning of your paragraphs are super important. So don't forget about them. In addition, for example, furthermore, in closing, those are all really great to add in. All right, guys, I can't wait to read your writing, and have a great day.